Good evening, Chicago. This is Jerry Vasilatos live streaming from the north side of Chicago, and joining me is Jose Requena. Oh, let me see if I can get us both up there. There we go. Oh, I'm still trying to figure out these StreamYard controls. Oh, we got a little bit of an echo. Is that from my side or your side? Hopefully it'll go away. Oh, it's gone now.
Okay, I can hear you okay. You sound clear.
Okay. Yep, you sound good too. Well, welcome back, Jose.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Well, having you back, you're co-host of the show.
Right.
How was your Memorial Day weekend?
Pretty chill, pretty uneventful. Didn't get up too much. Lunch and meal prepping. How about you?
Yeah, pretty much same here. Just kind of took it easy. I didn't have a chance to. I really, even though they're reopening Chicago, I don't feel that anxious to get out. I mean, I'm enjoying the nice weather here at home. Got a chance on Sunday to enjoy my niece's graduation, which was live streamed from Soldier Field. New Trier grad. I want to congratulate my niece, Martina Vasilatos. I don't know that she's even watching this, but what the heck? I want to give her congratulations. But yeah, they had the graduation from Soldier Field, which I thought was pretty cool. Other than that, we saw some news developments coming in from across the city that we thought we'd go on and report on tonight in another segment of Fear and Loathing in the Windy City, having you join us. And gosh, now I'm remembering why I prefer to stream at night. I'm looking gray, Jose. Anyway.
Looking great.
Am I? All right. I gotta move here for the camera and stuff. But we also want to share. We had a great meeting on Sunday with the Chicago Corner crew, planning next phases of what we're going to be doing with the channel. So, well, let me pass along the pulpit here, the soapbox, so you can share the first story coming in. As Chicago is basically kind of mobilized to reopen for the summer. What do you have to share?
Thanks. We talked on Sunday about doing different Chicago shows on the regular, so we hope to can do this every day. But for our Fear and Loathing segments, I just thought, we'd share stories that might be of interest. One of them being that we have Chicago has vaccination-only bars now. Chicago bar only allowing people inside who are vaccinated. I just thought the story was interesting. I'm just going to read it really quick to you guys, and we can kind of extrapolate from there. Please let me know on the chat if my audio is really bad, E. Heller. Sorry about that. If not, I will just bite the bullet and put on some headphones.
E. Heller says it's not from
having. It's from.
I'm sorry. He says
headphones on. Okay.
Yeah, it's from not having headphones on. He says it's
okay.
So maybe just lower your volume a little bit. That might help. I mean, because you're coming through clear, but you're loud. So maybe if you lower it a little.
Okay, there we go. All right, well, this is a Wrigleyville bar. The Wrigleyville bar is considered a vax-only bar, meaning to get in, you have to show physical proof you have gotten the vaccine, such as your vaccination card or a picture of your vax card and your identification. If you do not have proof, you are turned away at the door. So far, the move is paying off. Employees at Nice Lounge at Sheffield and Newport say Memorial Day weekend was packed. They announced the decision to allow only vaccinated patrons on Friday, and since then, they have been near full capacity. Bartender Miranda Isbell says the owners made the move so they could reopen to 100% capacity. She says it is a huge relief knowing that all her coworkers and now patrons are fully vaccinated. Just keeping everybody that's around you comfortable and being able to walk around without a mask on is the dream of 2021, said Isbell. So being able to allow that inside our establishment, but also make our business, which is very small and very old, make a lot of money, is huge for us. She hopes this is an incentive for people to get vaccinated and hopes other bars decide to follow their path. Feels really good to talk to people and be relaxed and feel a little more comfortable, said patron Beth Morrissey. So, Nice Lounge. Yeah. Yeah. So, while the world is clamoring for these vaccines, and at higher levels, there are like people are crying for vaccine apartheid, as we see some of our more industrialized countries kind of withhold sharing formulas and such. Chicago has a problem where Americans just don't want to take the vaccines, and now businesses are taking these kinds of measures. I don't know. I thought it was kind of interesting, especially coupled with our next story that we'll get to. But do you have any thoughts?
Honestly, Jose, I don't have a problem if I guess the only problem I have is not wanting to lose my vaccination card. I did get vaccinated. I don't know if they would accept copies at the door, because you do run the risk, even if you laminate it or carry it with you, of losing it. And who knows where we're going to be required to carry it in the future, if it's beyond, taverns or bars or social establishments letting us in. That said, if we could get copies or official copies of the vaccination card to carry around, I don't have a problem with it. And I know that there are a lot of people who have not been vaccinated. I know there are a lot of people who still cling to this craziness that this was a hoax, or it was the pandemic was overbloated, and that it was some kind of grand conspiracy. I don't know. I mean, I would rather know that people around me feel safe, even if I have to put on my mask when I go in places. I do carry my mask with me everywhere. If I have to carry a vaccination card to get in a certain establishment so that they can have 100% capacity, I think that that's good for the economy. If everyone is saying that they want to reopen because they want to re-stimulate the economy and support businesses, I don't see why this is an issue with some people. I don't know if you have any friends or associates who've expressed any thoughts on the whole carrying a Vax ID card. I know that there are issues some people have with, is it an intrusion of your liberty that it's the new, this identification card is a way to mark you or keep you out of places or discriminate against people. Have you heard any thoughts on any of that?
I mean, not in so far. And those were, I think, concerns that people, could have until we see it put into practice. The fact that it started in Wrigleyville, I think kind of, it's not River North, it's not Evanston, it's Wrigleyville. It's known for partying. I don't know. I think it's a big social experiment, and Chicago's always seems to be on the forefront of these kinds of social experiments. I have a Vax card. I'm pretty, fortunate, to really, this doesn't encumber me at all. I'm not drinking, and so I don't really need to be inside a bar. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting this summer that people are going to be feel like really the pandemic is over for them. If you're in a bar that has 100% capacity, if you're a server there, and the pandemic is no longer anything more than like another ID at the door. I don't
That's
know.
a very
I
good
just
point.
think,
You got to show your driver's license to show your age. What's the problem with showing a vaccination card to let people know in the establishment that you're safe?
yeah, I think that I think it makes sense for everyone that has healthcare. I think the people that are going to be left behind from these processes are when we'll see these stories kind of show an issue. But as a practice, I mean, we see that it's why it makes sense for small businesses. The government could have done a lot of things last year to help small businesses not be in the positions that they're in right now.
Yeah.
So it's also like, was this the logical conclusion that the government wanted, where the onerous of the social experiment of it all is on the small business community? So that was just kind of my thoughts on it. I'll have my Vax card, but yeah, we'll see how that's going to play out this summer.
Well, it's good to see, establishments reopening, and if this is a requirement to get in, I don't see a problem with it. I'm not a big drinker myself. I mean, usually I'll go to places really just as an opportunity to hang out with some friends and catch up and maybe have one or two beers. I have to say I've really missed the Lincoln Tap Room over in Lakeview, and Guthrie's Tavern near Wrigley, which closed down. They're reopening under new ownership. Great little establishment. Just two personal favorites of mine. I don't know if you have any that you want to plug, but a lot of character.
Mine's also closed down.
Oh, which one was it?
Jack's Tap on Jackson. That was my graduate school watering hole with my mates back in the day. Nice tavern.
Has there been any talk about reopening with new ownership, or? No,
I believe the business is switching to something else now. So yeah, it's a shame. There's been a lot of small businesses in Pilsen that seem to be afloat okay, but lounging taverns, seem to have not been doing so well.
How could they?
Yeah,
government support.
Yeah,
PPP went to, who was it? Mitch McConnell's wife, Nancy Pelosi's husband. The multimillionaire Congress who had got these multi-million-dollar businesses. They got the PPP. Meanwhile, our local watering holes had to shut down because they didn't qualify. I call bullshit, but that's just me.
God. And one of the things that we covered last time with the liquor licenses, that was something else I wanted to bring up. Bars closing at 10, or liquor stores not being able to sell liquor past 10 o'clock. Benefits bars that are open past 10 o'clock selling liquor. So this also seems kind of like, Chicago is known for its boosterism. Suddenly something's very cool and you're like, why? And it's like, well, someone's making money off it. But the small business community has been hit by the federal government. And I did wonder, are some of these moves like local officials trying to get in good with the small business community that ends up being real linchpins for their local elections? The cutting down liquor licenses isn't going to help us with COVID. It's not. It doesn't really do anything other than hurt liquor stores and help bars.
But no, you're right. There's a good point there. I do wonder if there's an underlying agenda there with passing this kind of legislation. You can't dismiss that kind of stuff, knowing the Chicago way.
Yep, you know it. So I want to segue to the next story, because then on that note, we have liquor stores are closing as summer festivals in Chicago are ramping up. We have some nice puff pieces about a bar that's safe to go and drink in because everyone's vaccinated. And then another piece that's now circulating the rounds: no states on Chicago's emergency travel order for the first time since July 2020. Meaning, hey, if you're from out of town, we're not going to be jerks to you now. Come back, spend your money. So I'm sharing the screen here.
Okay.
I they can see the screen that I'm sharing.
They can.
There we go. Sorry about that. If you've been in Chicago, this past year, it seems like Chicago and Illinois is like the only state that was like taking Dr. Fauci seriously and listening to the CDC and getting on the teacher's good side. Trump was the teacher, so like doing what we were supposed to do, even though whatever. So now this is just really weird that all the states around us that seemed like they were purposefully coughing in each other's mouths to prove a point, or at least that's the way our local media made it seem, are now open. They're open. We're open to them again for the first time since the Chicago Department of Public Health began issuing its emergency travel order in July of 2020. No states are in the orange tier that would require a quarantine, full vaccination, or a negative COVID test for anyone arriving in Chicago. I don't know how many people follow this, but that was what we were pushing out. Due to the improving conditions around the country and the ongoing uptake of the COVID-19 vaccine, no states are above the 15 cases per 100,000 residents per day threshold. 7 states that have been in orange tier when the previous travel order was issued 2 weeks ago have moved to the yellow tier. Those states are Colorado, Florida, Maine, Michigan, Minnesota, West Virginia, and Washington. Based on current data, the only states that are above 10 cases a day per 100,000 residents are Washington, Colorado, Wyoming, and West Virginia. No Midwest states are above 7.9 cases per day per 100,000 residents. So here we have Indiana, Michigan, Illinois, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, very low. This shows that we have been doing this shows what we have been doing to protect ourselves and others is working. Social distancing, wearing masks, and above all, getting vaccinated. Said CDPH Commission Alison Auerty, and this is good news, but by no means does it signal that we can drop our defenses against COVID-19. The CDC advises people to delay travel until they are fully vaccinated. If you're not fully vaccinated, must travel, follow CDC's recommendation. Even if you are fully vaccinated, you are expected to continue to adhere to masking rules. Masks are required on planes, buses, trains, other forms of public transportation traveling into, within, or out of the United States and U.S. transportation hubs such as airports and stations. So, you know, it seems like we're open for business again, and this push for normalcy seems to be prevalent across the country, and we just seem to be like the most averse city and state to really take these kind of steps. I just, I kind of wanted to couple that with the previous story and get your thoughts too. I don't know how it's been for you this
well,
past
yeah,
week.
It's interesting. I felt that it was interesting how quickly we transitioned after President Biden took office into this rush to reopening things. I do think that there is an agenda from each party, each side of the aisle, to use the pandemic, to use the crisis to their advantage. I do think that, from what I've read, Chicago is one of our U.S. cities that has taken this seriously, as seriously as they can, in mandating masks are worn in public, getting us to this point. I've read last year that warm weather is supposed to repel or put, what is the word? Warmer the virus cannot exist in warmer weather. So as we go into a warmer weather climate, maybe, it is a possibility that if people are vaccinated and they're not wearing their masks, the warm weather will help stave off the spread of the virus. I don't know, Jose. I mean, there's so much we don't know about this virus. Fauci was referenced in that article that we just shared. And, there's some question right now about whether or not he was helping cover up the fact that this may have originated in a lab. As I'm not giving President Trump any credit for this, but
can we spend 2 minutes on that?
We should, absolutely, because last year Trump was saying this originated in a lab. Of course, He made it racist and prejudiced by calling it the Wuhan flu and associating all kinds of racist labels to it. Let's put the racist labels aside and recognize that our government supports and finances this kind of research in other countries, and that our government was involved with the study of viruses in the Wuhan lab. So essentially, U.S. money may have created this virus that was created for researchers to be able to come up with vaccines to stave off viruses like this, and somehow or another got out of the laboratory. Only now are even some of the mainstream media outlets covering this. But your thoughts?
So, for the record, I have no idea about anything. I have a BA in English, and the GPA was not impressive. So,
But you have common sense, Jose. But you've got a good sense of common sense.
I appreciate that, buddy. Because I gotta say, I am skeptical that this is a man-made attack, which was the crux of Trump's argument. Now, I mean, he did say this came out of a China lab.
Attack or accident, because there's a difference between it intentionally being released or, as they're speculating now, some members who worked in that laboratory inadvertently caught it, contracted it, left the laboratory, and that's how it got loose. I don't think that it was a quote unquote false flag operation by China. I think that protocols may have been broached, and somehow or another, some of the researchers carried this out unwittingly, and this is how it started, unintentionally.
Yeah. So, and I get the theory. I saw, I love Thomas Frank. He's a great author on American populism, and he's kind of my sometimes like someone I take a real beat from. Like, is this something to panic about? He takes the fact that it could come out of a lab very seriously. Like, exactly to your point, the U.S. develops research to prevent a pandemic exactly like this. And with viruses that could spread exactly like this. But the crux of Trump's argument was that like no COVID death was his fault because this came from China.
Oh, of course.
That he even went so far as to say that like it's not a real virus, like which lends credibility to this, that it came from a lab, that it's a hoax, like it's a fake attack, which is why we shouldn't shut down businesses. Because that's an economic attack from China. Like he kept kind of bringing it back to everything bad that's coming from this is an attack. He even called COVID the enemy, because we have to be attacking something.
And he was also trying to distract from the fact that he was completely unprepared for handling this. He'd been warned by the previous administration that pandemic. They had I think it was, if I'm remembering correctly, there was a department there that got defunded or downgraded. There were protocols in place to prepare for this, and he didn't care. It's like when Bush was in office and they were warned that bin Laden was determined to strike on the U.S. and they just dismissed that memo. So most of what Trump did to propagandize it to prevent anybody from looking at his negligence in the matter, his administration's negligence in the matter, was just smokescreen.
Right. And I mean, and ultimately trying to find a different fault guy that like China mishandled something, they're attacking us, something. I think that, and I think I come back to that, like that whatever truth is in that narrative, it came mostly from a executive administration trying to obfuscate from the fact that they couldn't do anything to control the situation, and they were just kind of let it play out and see how they could play to their favor. I don't see the Biden administration jumping on board now with this narrative for any other reason than that. Exactly. Like, I don't think Biden really cares one way or another if it came from China or not. He won. He's going to set his agenda forward, and that's going to be history. But I think that this pressure comes from the same hawks that wanted this narrative from Trump, and Trump just kind of went ham with it. But they want this narrative from Biden to isolate China. Now, I'm not, the Communist Party of China is not my friend, and I'm not here to support, a foreign government. But it's pretty obvious that like this narrative benefits the Biden administration to recoup some of the some of the diplomatic ties that were broken during the Trump years that China has capitalized on, while giving the right wing of like the military-industrial complex their way on setting up a Cold War with China. This doesn't help the Democrats in 2022 at all by saying, oh yeah, we're wrong, Trump was right, and yeah, maybe we have to go to war with China. But I also think that's part of the plan for the Biden administration, not to make it good for the Democrats, because as we saw them, doing everything they could to try to not give the grassroots their way in Georgia's special elections, there is a need by the Biden administration, by the American government, to not let the people, the populace's way, for the people have their way in any shape or form. We'll get back to that on the elected school board compromise thing. But just to give Trump some credit, I do think that is why he's had such a radical impact on global politics, because he is kind of like this internet meme that the internet willed into existence, into a formal presidential administration that was total chaos, which was the point. but I think people in power are reticent to let happen again, and people are eager to make happen again. I think the China narrative kind of benefits the elites that have been set on a Cold War with China.
Oh, absolutely.
That doesn't benefit us.
No, to your point there, I think you're absolutely right. It's all agendas playing out behind the scenes and how they can manipulate what's happening or the flow of news and public opinion to serve the agenda that they're trying to pull behind the scenes. So, that's some very good points you bring up. So, talk about some fear and loathing in the Windy City. I have some news from our Memorial Day weekend crime figures.
Yeah.
Good news and bad news and good news, and I'll temper that. At least 3 dead, 34 wounded in Chicago's Memorial Day weekend violence, and this comes to us from Catherine Rosenberg Douglas at the Chicago Tribune. 3 people were shot early Tuesday in the back of the yards, leaving 1 person in critical condition and bringing the total number of gun violence victims over Memorial Day weekend to 3 dead and 34 wounded, according to Tribune data. Superintendent David Brown, during a morning news conference, said there had been 4 homicides during the long weekend. Police spokeswoman Kelly Bartoli said that figure included a Friday morning homicide, which the department's News Affairs division doesn't consider part of the weekend when compiling statistics. You got to, if you can fudge it one way or the other, fudge it that way. It's crazy. The Tribune counts holiday weekend shootings numbers from 3 p.m. Friday through 6 a.m. the day after a Monday holiday. Even so, Brown said, the long holiday weekend that's generally considered the start of summer, the season when gun violence typically spikes in Chicago, saw a noteworthy decline in shootings compared with recent years. And that's the good news I was referring to. Violence is down. Over the 4-day weekend, Memorial Day, there were 4 murders, which was the lowest in 10 years. Brown said, adding that the tally won't be low enough until it reaches 0. Absolutely agreed on that. We have a lot of work to do. Nobody's celebrating anything. That's good to hear. 4 people lost their lives over the weekend, and we're in prayer for those families, but we're also determined to continue to have an effect on violence through this collaborative approach, he said. Last year's Memorial Day weekend saw the worst bloodshed since 2015, with 10 people fatally shot and at least 40 others wounded, despite a stay-at-home order prompted by the coronavirus pandemic. On Sunday and Monday, there was 1 fatal shooting and 20 people shot and wounded. Previously, 2 men were killed and 10 others were injured in holiday weekend shootings from 3 p.m. Friday to late Saturday night. A total of 4 people were shot Tuesday morning before 6 a.m. Good thing they got it in before the cutoff. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not making light of it, but when we're talking about these windows, when does it count? When it's the Memorial Day weekend? If we weren't laughing, we'd be crying. According to the Chicago police media notifications, 3 males were hurt in the back of the yard shooting, and a woman was shot in Avondale. Officers were called to the 4700th block of South Addis Street about 2:15 a.m. Police said 3 males had been standing outside when someone in a gray SUV began shooting at them before driving off north on 47th Street, according to police. One of the males was dropped off at Mount Sinai Hospital with a gunshot wound to the head. That was thoughtful of whoever dropped him off. And one to the hand, police said. He had been listed in critical condition, and he was listed as a John Doe, Bartoli said, because his name and age were not known. An 18-year-old man suffered a gunshot wound to the foot, and he was taken to Stroger Hospital in good condition. A 3rd male suffered a graze wound in his right leg, and he refused medical treatment, police said. These are just Memorial Day statistics, and we're talking about it was a holiday weekend. The statistics are higher and, even greater any other day of the week or however.
Saturday too.
Yeah. The victim who refused medical treatment is also a John Doe, as he did not provide his name to responding officers, Bartoli said in an email. No arrests had been made, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's like 3 more paragraphs, but I think we get the gist of what happened this weekend, although it's tragic. We lost lives, on the positive side, the numbers are down, but we need to get to 0. But, when they say we need to get to 0, I question. No, I don't question it. I know how we can get the numbers down to 0. We've got crime. We've got desperation in these communities because we're not putting money into these communities. We've talked about this before. until they start doing that, until they start doing things like funding youth academies, youth centers like what Jamal Green is proposing on the South Side to train kids, to provide support. When people ask, well, how are the police supposed to stop things? I don't think anybody can expect the police to stop the violence from happening, but unless we figure out how to stop the violence from happening with funding these neighborhoods, then the police don't have to be called out. I mean, there's so many different aspects. There's so many different roots or connections to that whole debate when people hold the police or the mayor accountable for the violence. On a distant level, they are accountable, or at least the city hall is, as far as money that's not invested in these communities to provide more opportunities or more infrastructure to hopefully stave off the desperation of these people who are involved in what's happening, reporting on it.
Yeah. I mean, an elected oversight civilian board for police is really nothing fancier than like all the CAPS groups that work with the precincts right now, organizing to elect people that know what's going on in their neighborhoods, so they can organize the police accordingly. Central control to the mayor, she still treats downtown like it's surrounded by a moat when she puts the bridges up and shuts down public transportation during protests. It's something that I think about Emmanuel's toyed with, but like now it's becoming a norm. And Chicago can be better than that. We'll talk to the school board, but the police do not have an easy in Chicago. I don't think that centralizing power makes their day-to-day life easier. I think it makes their job more secure if they're ready to be violent, as they've been trained to be, towards the right people at the right times. Your point exactly, this violence happens because of lack of investments, and it's lack of investments in the same perennial communities in Chicago for almost 3 generations now. The places that the city had deemed early on were going to be industrial and dirty, and people that live there will not be worth as much as people that live elsewhere.
And we're seeing this additionally with the what are they calling it now? The environment, racial pollution, where they're putting recycling plants and other facilities in these residential neighborhoods on the south and west sides, where they just don't care about the quality of air. They don't care about the quality of the environment that these people are living under. Kit's reported on this several times. We did the General Iron protest report I think it was about 2 or 3 months ago. And, they don't want to put TIF funds into these neighborhoods where it's supposed to go to provide the infrastructure. And they're just shifting all of these environmental polluters into these residential communities as well, because they just don't give a damn about the people living there. And I do think that there are a handful of aldermen who are outspoken about trying to prevent this from happening, but it's got the buck stops with City Hall and the mayor, and too often she obfuscates and says she doesn't know about this, or they're denying the permit. But here's the interesting thing with General Iron, that recycling plant. They started building that plant without the permit because they figured it was going to be a done deal when they went into the hearings to get the permit. Then the EPA shut it down, and now they're still figuring that, well, we're going to beat that because we've already built the place. And it doesn't matter because we've got the money to send our lawyers in and argue this so that we can continue our recycling activities on the southwest side neighborhood that they've built the plant, as well as pollute the community with no repercussions.
Chicago.
It's Chicago town, baby. Not Chinatown, it's Chicago town.
Chicago.
As we talk about the spike in violence, or actually we saw that there was a reduction in violence and shootings over this weekend, but in a related story regarding handgun violence, we have the story in that the Illinois House narrowly passes a bill requiring fingerprinting for FOID card applicants. And this comes from Amanda Vinicki via WTTW. All legal gun owners would need to be fingerprinted under legislation that narrowly passed the Illinois House on Saturday, a practice that gun right advocates say will prevent violence, but which critics say is an example of excessive government overreach. The measure is Illinois' belated response to a mass shooting in suburban Aurora that occurred more than 2 years ago. I'm so glad that they were so quick to manage this, given that incident happened 2 years ago.
Yeah, it wasn't right to politicize it then because that just happened. So like 2 years later.
Of course. We had to wait. More deaths, more shootings, more people getting their hands on guns that shouldn't get their hands on guns if there were proper waiting periods. But a true response may be further off given the bill's uncertain future in the state Senate. In February of 2019, a gunman who was later killed by police fatally shot 5 people at the Henry Pratt warehouse. The gunman should never have had a gun. A previous felony for aggravated assault in Mississippi should have disqualified him from getting a firearm owner's identification card, or FOID, in Illinois, but the felony didn't appear in a background check. Illinois only found out about the conviction after he'd already been issued the FOID card when he submitted fingerprints in order to expedite an application for a concealed carry permit. Law enforcement could have, but did not, strip the shooter of the gun he later used to shoot his former co-workers. If the Henry Pratt shooter had to have a mandated fingerprint for his FOID card, it would have been a comprehensive and complete background check that would have caught the aggravated felony charge that he had in Mississippi, and he would never have gotten a FOID card or a gun, said sponsoring Representative Maura Hirschauer, Democrat from West Chicago. There would be 6 people alive and 5 uninjured. Law enforcement. House Bill 1091 would mandate that people undergo a fingerprinting process when applying for a FOID card. Those who already have a FOID card would have to do so upon renewal. This bill will make it harder for dangerous people like the Henry Pratt shooter to access deadly weapons by requiring a fingerprint for a firearm owner ID card. That way we can quickly identify and accurately identify gun purchasers, Hirschauer said. This bill will also require action by ISP, Illinois State Police, to remove guns once a FOID's revoked. Okay, so, hey, if you want to own a gun to protect yourself, you shouldn't have a problem getting fingerprinted. You shouldn't have a problem with the correct background checks. I am not a gun fan whatsoever. However, I did register for a FOID card 10 years ago because I would go target shooting, and my feeling was I would rather have the education to know how to use a firearm if I needed to, rather than just ignore it absolutely, that kind of education. And I had to apply for the FOID card. If they wanted fingerprints, I would have been fine providing them. I've got nothing to hide. Do a background check. There's a responsibility that comes with carrying deadly force. And I know that, we're talking about the Second Amendment rights that everybody screams about, but there's responsibility that comes with that. And as this story just demonstrated, had they done the proper due diligence or had that fingerprinting mandate been in place in the beginning, I think they said 6 people would still be alive, and many more as a result of everybody who's running around, with guns, whether it's concealed carry or open carry. And maybe that kind of fingerprinting would prevent those weapons getting into the hands of people who shouldn't have them and reduce some of the shootings that we're hearing about all across the city. Although I know a lot of the weapons that are involved in these shootings are illegally acquired to begin with, even a little dent is some dent in denying those who've got mental issues or prior criminal backgrounds away from being able to carry something and cause more mayhem or tragedy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with anything you just said right now. I don't have a gun. I haven't really gone shooting. I've seen guns. I've been around guns. I've held guns. But I don't mess with guns much because, when you hang out with people with guns, you guys don't end the night like eating ice cream. It's like Chicago just has a different relationship with that. But than the rest of America.
There's a gun culture too that's really a little bit creepy. Like I said, I target shot with my dad, and I haven't renewed my FOID card just because I didn't have a need to, because we had the pandemic and I, wasn't that anxious to go do it. But, the culture that's associated, the gun culture that's associated with, we don't want these background checks. And I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, you're good.
I'm just getting passionate about it.
Please.
But no, please continue with what you were saying with, it's not like the ice cream crowd that you're hanging out with.
Well, exactly.
Gun rights.
Because, you can go shooting and then go for ice cream later. That doesn't tend to be the people that become hawks about gun legislation, to your point. America's the only place that has this weird interlocked relationship with weapons, with guns specifically, that I know of to this degree. But I wish that these common sense solutions, like background checks, like waiting periods, like would be the first thing that we're pushing out, when we're talking about guns and violence, because assault weapons bans are needed again. Like, I don't think anyone needs an AR, but like
No reason.
Picking that fight, which is a flashy headline grabbing fight, over like bread and butter kind of reforms like this, are why the Democrats lose on gun reform each and every time, because they go for the headline of the issue when it's an everyday issue that like we had to wait 2 years since the situation in Aurora before we saw a narrow margin of traction. But
how irresponsible to wait that long, more lives were lost because of that.
No one, whenever someone says I need a gun today, right now from a Walmart, it's probably not the person to like stand the Constitution for. I don't know. That's where I'm at with it.
I couldn't agree with you more. And the arguments for assault weapons, or if you live in a rural terrain and you like to hunt and you've got your single shot rifle, fine. You don't need an AR-15 for that. If you really feel the need to protect yourself because you are afraid of being assaulted in the street, and you go through the proper background check, get fingerprinted for concealed carry or whatever, I don't have a problem with it. But go through the proper process so we know that the people getting the weapons are properly vetted to prevent these kind of tragedies. And that doesn't apply to the assault weapons that everybody wants to run around with. That's a whole other bag of worms. But so interesting. I thought it was an interesting story as it related to shootings across the city any day of the week, not just Memorial Day weekend. The issue coming up with the legislation on fingerprinting FOID cards.
Definitely.
So you have another story for us now. Let's shift into education, something that relates a lot to providing the support that kids need in our school system, the kind of support, the kind of education to hopefully guide them in different directions. And this is related to a school board to properly run things that is not appointed by the mayor and is elected, as I think a lot of people would agree needs to be done, so we can actually vet these people making those decisions. Before you run with the story, I do have a video I was able to take from Twitter that was in relation to, do you remember the reporter's name who interviewed the representative downstate?
It was Amanda Vinicky.
Oh, okay. We actually read a story from her earlier. Yeah, she also gave us the story on the FOID card applications. Yeah. All right, let me add this to the stream so we can quickly hear what the representative downstate had to share with us about that from her Twitter. And let's see if I can bring this up. Add this to the stream. There we go.
No. Before 1 p.m. Are you going to be calling the CPS elected school board bill? And if so, what does that bill look like?
Well, I mean, that's the intention of the Senate, and the Senate president has said that we will be calling an elected school board. It is, however, up in the air because we're trying to figure out what that bill is going to look like, and that's not easy there. So it's tenuous. There are a number of different provisions that revolve around this transition period. So we're not going to get an elected school board immediately. We're going to have a period of transition. And so the question is, what does that transition period look like? Primarily, what's the balance of power? Do those seeking the elections they have enough protections for themselves? That's really what this hinges on. So we'll see what happens. We're waiting to see what that structure is going to look like and whether or not we can pass that bill.
And is there a target date to move to all elected, or is that still also being negotiated even at this hour?
Well, it is being negotiated. We've sort of arrived on 2026 being sort of the date that we would transition to a fully elected. 2024 would be where we would have a partially elected, 2026 a fully elected board. And but yeah, there are questions about the details of what does that structure look like during that period.
In other words, wait and see what happens yet this afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, I've always said that this bill is important to not just me, but to so many people in the city of Chicago, including legislators. And so not just on the Senate side, but on the House side. So if we're going to find something that is less than what people have asked for, we have to make sure that everyone feels that it's sufficient enough to get us to 2026.
Less than what people ask for, you're saying, and all elected right away.
That's right, and that's what has always been the movement. The Senate president has suggested he's for a fully elected, and I'm grateful for that. But he also wants his terms for passage were a period of transition in order to ensure, that the process didn't create a system of shock, and we didn't affect student outcomes. And I understand that. I disagree. I trust in democracy, but this is his condition, and so we have to make sure that it's what people can vote for.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, yeah, that's interesting. How long we've got to wait for that to come.
That's his compromise bill. Yeah. There's
Now,
two
I
bills.
think that was happening today. Have there been any? I'm sorry, I don't know if there were any developments since that was recorded earlier today. But share with us what you know.
Well, that's Senator Martwick talking about his compromise bill that he drafted in to basically give Lori Lightfoot some cover. Schools have a ton of money, that go into them. Melinda and Bill Gates, their non-for-profit was basically about, controlling and taking over the school system of America, eventually for privatizing efforts. And because there's so much money that is involved that goes into it. Lori Lightfoot giving, she ran on an elected board. So, I mean, this is just BS that she's getting in the way of it. But, if she were to allow an fully elected school board by 2022, or 2024, it would just completely piss off like the global business community that feels a certain kind of ownership towards global cities, like Chicago, especially one next much fresh water. They want the city
And those Democratic elites controlling
those Democratic elites.
The neoliberal cabal that's running the Democratic Party right now, the Republicans light.
I would say that one of the definitive characteristics of Cook County Democrats is that they are at ease and happy being casino managers for larger capitalistic forces, preying on the population here. I mean, they're here to we're their product that they sell to global capitalist elites, we're their workforce, we're all these things. And the schools and the type of workers that they produce, which is really the way that, they discuss the school business system, is a critical part of, developing, a population that global elites and capitalists want to invest in. This compromise bill, yep, I agree, Heller. It's period of transition, it's incremental delay, Zissel, but this is Martwick basically talking about his compromise bill, which would lead to a fully elected school board by 2026, although by then they would have pretty much figured out how to control it fully. 2024, right now, because of the way the amount of schools and school districts in Chicago, they are looking at I believe it's 21 or 27. It's a large number of elected school board positions, which is a huge number of people. But one of the reasonings for having that many representatives on the school board was just so they each better represents their school district, and there's less of a chance of big money influencing these elections when they're really small and local and pretty pertain to issues that are tied to the school. Some local school council people, put out some Facebook ads, but it doesn't get more serious. It doesn't really get like more than that. A large elected school board is to try to replicate those dynamics that we see in local school council races. So this bill moves forward with 10 elected positions by 2024. The rest are appointed, and then by 2026, have them all be elected. And then there's already grumblings about the numbers being too big, and they want to shrink them out so that and they decry the amount of big money influence that can happen in these races, while making dynamics happen so that big money can influence these races. It sucks, but I think the fact that they're in chamber right now having this discussion is to the testament of like generations of Chicagoans pushing for this kind of equality. Chicago is the only municipality in all of Illinois not to have an elected school board.
And there's a reason.
Yeah, there's a reason.
Let's. I wanted to bring up something from Chalkbeat that I found, and so I get this screen up. 4 things to know about the elected school board in Chicago. Add the stream here. There we go. Take off our little banners. Does that work? There we go. So yeah. The debate over whether Chicago should embrace an elected school board has a new twist. A mayoral-backed proposal for a hybrid board that would continue to give City Hall influence, everything you just shared with us. The mayor's proposal would not entirely eliminate mayoral control. Big surprise. The hybrid proposal has come late in the game, kicking the can down the road. Supporters of the elected board don't have a clear path to victory. Both proposals have critics. This is, I'll link this in the show notes afterwards from Chalkbeat, but they give a very, very concise breakdown in regards to everything you just shared, as far as, this grasp on wanting to control the school board that takes the power from the communities by electing the representatives to put the type of system in place for their kids to properly educate them in ways that aren't as effective as we'd hope they would be right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's a mess.
It is a mess. There's no doubt about that. Everything we're talking about is a mess. But as we come to our show close, you do have a little bit of a feel-good story that shocked me when you shared it with me, and I'll let you share the story, and I'll then talk about why it shocked me.
Yeah, Illinois accidentally passed something that was pretty decent. This whole endeavor started off cynically, but has culminated into a feel-good story. So Illinois passes a bill to make recess mandatory at public schools. Recess could soon be mandatory at public schools across Illinois. A bill requiring 30 minutes per day of supervised, unstructured recess for schools is now heading to Governor Pritzker's desk. The 30 minutes of recess can be split into 2 15-minute periods if a school district so chooses. The bill would also make it so that a student can't be removed from recess as a punishment. The bill passes 60 to 52 with 6 no votes. Republicans voted against it because of concerns.
Because they're no fun. Republicans, they vote against everything because they just don't want kids to have fun.
School's supposed to suck, I guess. Republicans would be the concerns about what it could do to school's already structured day. What? When did they ever give a shit about that? They also brought up complaints from local school districts that said the financial impact of hiring recess supervisors could be a cause for issues for schools. So that's the real reason.
Oh my God. How much money is that going to cost?
Right.
Jesus Christ.
So this was an endeavor that Ron Emanuel actually kind of forced on Chicago public schools, where he extended the school day so that kids were in school longer. Because
parents can't afford babysitters to be home after school, Ron decided to throw the responsibility on the teachers by having them work longer hours, keep the kids in school, not pay the teachers more. Again, more neoliberal crap from the Republican lights.
Beautifully set up. That's exactly right. Rahm Emanuel extended the school day and gave teachers absolutely no extra resources, gave school districts no extra nothing, actually started slashing budgets and closing schools while extending the day for those exact cynical reasons. And then, as a solution, most schools adopted bringing back recess. And, they realized you do need permanent recess monitors if you're going to make this program work right. I was one of those people that shuffled in and out of the classroom and helped these recess classes. That's actually kind of how I got started at CPS. Now, we are showing that in Illinois, we could pass it into law where this will actually be mandated into all the public school system, meaning that it's not something extra that schools are just throwing in there to eat up time. We actually get to do it right, because studies do show when you give kids some real time to socialize unstructurally and just have fun, they actually do better in class for the second half of the day instead of burning out. So I thought this was great.
It is. And the part of the story that shocked me was I never knew middle school without recess. Yeah. or a break at lunch in high school to like have some free time on my own with my friends before we went back to classes. And I guess I do recall the story a few years ago when Emmanuel extended the school day. I guess I wasn't paying enough attention to discover that also meant that he was canceling recess along with cutting what resources that the teachers needed.
He wasn't so much canceling recess as though he accidentally brought recess back by extending the school day, but having no plan to do anything with that extra time. So this is an accidental legacy of really corrupt Democrats somehow, because they weren't paying attention, letting people self-improve their lives, which, in my view, is the story of Chicago. So I like telling it here.
It's Chicago Town, Jose. Do you get the reference? It's Chinatown, Jake, from the movie Chinatown.
Good movie. Yeah,
it's a good movie. Yeah, and there's the line is it's Chinatown, Jake. So we just have to say it's Chicago Town, Jose. Same kind of corruption, same shit, Chicago different day. Well, I'm glad that, especially now with kids going back to school full time, that they're going to have that opportunity for recess, have an opportunity to socialize and take a break from the grind of the school day. I guess on that note, we kind of covered some of the stuff that we wanted to share with our viewers coming out of Memorial Day weekend into the first week, even though it's not yet officially summer. It sure feels like it, with the Board of Health allowing more Chicago establishments to open up, the warm weather, people getting out. Anything else you want to share towards the end of our broadcast here?
Yeah, there was a story that we didn't have time for today. It's a development right now that we'll hopefully cover next week. Check it out on Crane's Business Chicago if you have a subscription, or Google huge energy bill, Illinois. Basically, Governor Pritzker and Exxon are playing chicken over whether he's going to pay Exxon's bills for them on the nuclear silos. And Exxon's threatening that if he doesn't, they're just going to have to shut them down, because you can do that with nuclear power anytime. So interesting situation. I love talking energy and crime stories because we do hope to municipalize ComEd is a campaign that I'm embroiled in. So we'll be talking about that next week.
And here's a good segue. Much as the movie Chinatown had to do with the water and politics in California, here we go with the another municipality here in Chicago, Exelon, and the governor in downstate, and what kind of shenanigans are happening behind the scenes. I got to share with the audience, when Jose shared the link to the story, I'm like, yeah, we got to be all over this, but it's going to take more than just squeezing it into the show we wanted to do tonight. So we're going to do our due diligence and our research to really give it as much coverage as we can in next week's show, and dedicate an entire episode next Tuesday night. And we are going to be on regularly now on Tuesdays with Fear and Loathing in the Windy City. I'll be joined by Jose every week as much as our schedules allow. And we look forward to all of you joining us again next week, and then come back this Friday when we do another weekend wrap up of the week's top news stories and commentary. I believe this week, Kira Elliott will be joining me to co-host. Please like and subscribe the show. Share it with your friends. If you have stories to contribute, you can contact me, Jerry, at chicagocorner.tv. We have a lot of, we want to cover art stories. In fact, I'm going to be having an author on soon to talk about her podcast and her books that she's been authoring. actually an old friend of mine from many years ago, but I've seen what she's been doing, and I reached out to her and I said, we got to bring an arts segment in here, and I'm not getting any tips from anybody. So Mary, you want to come on and talk about your books and your podcast? So hopefully we'll be scheduling that soon. We don't want to just cover news and politics. We want to cover all kinds of news from all neighborhoods and all 50 wards. Thanks to everybody for joining us tonight. Jose, again, thank you for joining me so we can make this a regular Tuesday night segment.
Yeah, happy to be here, man. Thanks for doing this.
And as always, be safe, Chicago. Good night.